It was a quiet night, and Caleb was sitting alone in his room, watching his favorite TV show. The lights were bright, and everything felt normal. Suddenly, the TV turned off by itself. Caleb looked around, confused. The power was still on because the room lights were working fine. He picked up the remote and pressed the buttons, but nothing happened. Then, after a few seconds, the TV turned on again all by itself. At first, it showed only black and white static, the kind of fuzzy noise that comes when there is no signal. Caleb sighed, thinking it was just a network problem. But then, something strange happened. Inside the static, he saw a faint shape, like a human figure moving slowly. Caleb leaned closer. The figure became clearer. It was a woman with long dark hair, pale skin, and hollow eyes staring directly at him from inside the screen. Suddenly, the lights in his room began to flicker. They went off, leaving him in complete darkness. When they came back on, the woman had vanished from the screen, and the TV was showing a normal cartoon again. Caleb felt a chill run down his spine. He tried to laugh it off, but his hands were shaking. Then a soft whisper came from the TV. Someone was saying his name. Caleb, he froze. He unplugged the TV, but the whisper continued. The screen was still glowing. "Don't look away," the voice said. The room became icy cold. Caleb's breath turned white. He turned toward the door to escape, but the woman from the TV was now standing behind him, her face half covered with black hair, static buzzing around her like electricity. The lights flickered one last time, and then everything went dark. The next morning, only the TV was found, still turned on, showing static. Caleb couldn't sleep that night after the strange things that happened with his TV. He kept thinking about the ghostly woman he saw inside the screen. The next evening, he decided to test it again. Maybe it was just his imagination, he thought. He turned on the TV, but everything looked normal this time. A movie was playing, and the lights in his room were steady. Caleb tried to relax. But after a few minutes, the TV started to flicker again. The picture blurred, the sound cracked, and then the screen went black. Caleb's heart began to pound. Slowly, the TV turned on again, and this time, it was showing a dark, empty room, but it wasn't a movie scene. It looked exactly like his room. He could see his bed, his chair, even the same curtain moving slightly in the wind. Then, the image on the TV changed. A figure appeared sitting on the bed inside the screen. Caleb's eyes widened. The figure looked exactly like him. It was another Caleb, sitting in the same position, wearing the same clothes. The TV version of him slowly looked toward the camera and smiled, a strange, creepy smile. Caleb quickly pressed the power button, but the TV wouldn't turn off. The lights in his room began to blink again. The air turned cold, and a whisper came from the TV, "You shouldn't have watched." The ghostly woman appeared behind the reflection of his own image. Her face was cracked like broken glass, and her eyes glowed white. Caleb grabbed the remote and threw it across the room. He screamed as the screen started shaking violently, as if someone was trying to come out from it. The TV exploded with a loud pop, filling the room with smoke and static. When the smoke cleared, Caleb was gone. Only the TV remained, now showing a new person's face trapped inside the screen. 2 days had passed since the night Caleb's TV exploded. His parents thought it was just a short circuit, but Caleb knew something else had happened. He couldn't stop thinking about the ghostly woman inside the screen. Every night, he heard soft whispers in his room, even though there was no TV anymore. The whispers always said the same word, "Look." Trying to forget, Caleb bought a new TV from a local shop. The shopkeeper gave him a strange look and said, "Don't watch after midnight." Caleb laughed nervously, thinking it was just a joke. That night, he turned on his new TV. Everything seemed fine. He watched a comedy show, then switched to the news. Midnight passed, and the screen suddenly froze. The same static appeared again, just like before. Caleb's hands trembled. He stood up slowly. Then, from inside the static, he saw something move. The ghostly woman's face appeared again, but this time it was clearer, pale skin, black hair, and a mouth that opened wider than humanly possible. She looked straight at him and whispered, "You replaced me." Caleb panicked and tried to switch the TV off, but every channel showed her face. The volume turned up by itself, filling the room with loud static noise. Then the lights started to flicker off and on, faster and faster. Suddenly, the woman crawled halfway out of the screen. Her body was thin and twisted, and her eyes glowed white. Caleb stumbled backward, screaming. He threw a blanket over the TV, but the static sound continued underneath it. The whole room shook violently. Then silence. When the lights stopped flickering, the blanket was flat against the screen. Caleb slowly lifted it, but the TV was gone. Only a dark shadow was burned into the wall, the shape of a person trying to escape. After the strange shadow appeared on his wall, Caleb became terrified of being alone in his room. He moved the broken TV outside, but every night, he still heard the same sound, a low humming noise, like static, coming from inside his walls. It was soft at first, but it grew louder each night. Caleb couldn't sleep. The noise followed him everywhere, even in silence. One evening, when the sound became too strong, he decided to record it on his phone. He placed the phone near the wall and waited. After a few minutes, he played the recording back, and what he heard made his blood run cold. The static wasn't just noise anymore. It was a voice. A whispering woman's voice saying, "You can't escape me, Caleb." His phone suddenly slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. The screen cracked, and the voice continued playing on its own. The lights flickered. Caleb froze. Then, the old TV he had thrown outside turned itself on, even though it wasn't plugged in. Through the window, Caleb saw its screen glowing, showing his face inside it live, as if it were filming him right now. Panicking, he ran outside to unplug it again. As he reached for the TV, a sharp static sound blasted from the speakers, making his ears ring. The woman's voice spoke again, this time louder. "Why did you leave me?" Caleb screamed and smashed the TV with a rock, breaking the screen. But instead of turning off, the static kept glowing faintly from the shattered glass. In the broken pieces, he saw the reflection of the woman standing right behind him. Her face was close to his ear, whispering, "Now it's your turn." The lights in the whole house went out. The next morning, only Caleb's phone was found, still recording, with the faint sound of static in the background. After that terrifying night, Caleb left his house and went to stay with his friend Ryan for a few days. He thought leaving the house would stop the haunting, but something followed him. On the second night at Ryan's place, as they sat watching a movie, the TV suddenly froze. The image flickered, and a strange noise filled the room, the same static Caleb had heard before. Ryan laughed and said, "Man, your bad luck is following you." But Caleb's face went pale. He knew that sound. He whispered, "Turn it off." Ryan picked up the remote and pressed the power button, but nothing happened. The volume kept increasing by itself, and then the screen went black. A few seconds later, the same ghostly woman appeared. Her face was pale and cracked like broken glass. Her long black hair covered half of her face, and her eyes glowed white. Ryan shouted, "What the hell is that?" But Caleb couldn't speak. The ghost turned her head slowly toward Caleb and said, "You left me alone." The lights in the room flickered violently. Caleb and Ryan backed away, but the TV began to shake. The woman's hands pushed out from the screen, stretching the glass like it was made of water. Ryan ran toward the plug and pulled it out, but the TV stayed on. A high-pitched static sound filled the room, and suddenly, the power went out completely. In the darkness, Caleb could still see the faint light from the TV. The ghost was now crawling halfway out, her body twisted and shaking. Caleb screamed and ran out of the room, dragging Ryan with him. When they looked back, the TV had fallen to the floor, still glowing. The next morning, Ryan's TV was completely black, but when they looked closer, Caleb's reflection was inside the screen, staring blankly as if trapped on the other side. Caleb was now terrified to go near any television. He stopped watching completely and even covered every screen in the house with a blanket. But the nightmares continued. Every night, he dreamed of static, of the ghostly woman calling his name from inside the darkness. He could hear her whispering, "You belong to me now." One night, Ryan noticed something strange. Even with all the TVs turned off and covered, one of them started glowing faintly under the blanket. The two friends stared at it. The screen was lighting up from underneath as if someone was trying to turn it on. Ryan lifted the blanket slowly and froze. The TV was on, showing a live news channel. But there was something wrong with the broadcast. The news anchor on the screen was speaking in a distorted voice, and behind him, the image of Caleb was visible, sitting in his room at home, the exact same room he had left days ago. The camera was moving closer to the on-screen Caleb as if something unseen was filming him live. Caleb stepped back, horrified. "That's me, but I'm here," he whispered. Suddenly, the news anchor turned his head and looked straight through the screen. His eyes went black. The voice from the TV changed. It was the same whispering woman again. "You can't run away." The power went out instantly. The whole room turned cold. The air filled with soft static sounds, like hundreds of whispers. Then, from inside the dark TV screen, a pale hand pressed against the glass, slowly pushing through. Caleb and Ryan screamed and ran out of the house. But when they returned the next morning, the TV was still glowing, showing a new broadcast. This time, the headline read, "Two missing men found inside television signal." Days passed, but no one saw Caleb or Ryan again. Their families called the police, and an investigation began. The officers found Ryan's house empty, except for one thing: the TV was still turned on. The screen showed nothing but endless static. When one of the officers tried to unplug it, the plug was already out. Still, the static continued. Later that night, strange things started happening in the neighborhood. People reported hearing faint whispers coming from their televisions, even when they were turned off. Some said they saw blurry faces inside the static, faces that looked like Caleb and Ryan. Meanwhile, inside the dark world of the static, Caleb woke up on a cold, endless floor made of glass. He looked around and saw thousands of glowing screens floating in the air. Each one showed a different house, a different person watching TV. Ryan was standing beside him, terrified. "Where are we?" he asked. A soft voice answered from behind them, "You're in the broadcast." It was the woman, the ghost who had haunted them. Her body flickered like a broken signal, and her eyes were pure white light. "You watched me," she said, her voice echoing. "Now others will watch you." She pointed at one of the screens, and Caleb saw his family at home, staring at their TV, which was showing him trapped inside, banging on the screen for help. He screamed, but no one could hear. The ghost smiled and vanished into the static mist. Slowly, Ryan's image faded from beside him, disappearing into another screen. Caleb was left alone, surrounded by the endless hum of televisions, every screen showing his terrified face. Back in the real world, a new mysterious channel appeared on everyone's TV, Channel 13. When people tuned in, all they saw was a frightened young man whispering, "Please, turn it off." If you ever see your TV flicker for no reason, or hear a whisper coming from the static, maybe, just maybe, it's not a glitch, it's her trying to reach you. No matter what happens, never watch after midnight. Did this story give you chills? Then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss another scary story like this one. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if a ghost appeared on your TV screen?